I sacrificed 5 years caring for my bedridden wife. Then our new doctor leaned in and whispered, "She's perfectly healthy, Run." At 3 a.m., I caught her walking normally, and what I saw next shattered my world. But to understand how I got to that moment, I need to tell you from the beginning. It all started 5 years ago when Lorena began experiencing symptoms. First, mild dizziness, then extreme fatigue, then leg pains that made her cry at night. I took her to Dr. Marcello, our trusted family doctor for decades. The diagnoses were devastating. A rare degenerative disease, he told me. Something that attacked her nervous system, weakened her muscles, and would eventually leave her unable to walk. There was no cure, only very expensive palliative treatments and constant care. I vividly remember the day Lorena stopped walking. It was a Tuesday afternoon. She tried to get out of bed, and her legs simply didn't respond. She collapsed on the floor, crying, shouting that she didn't want to be a burden to me. I carried her in my arms, took her back to bed, and promised her something I believed with all my heart. "You'll never be alone. I'll always be here." And I kept that promise. I quit my job as an engineer, a job I had built for 25 years with a salary of $4,000 a month that allowed us to live well. But Lorena needed me. Someone had to be with her 24 hours a day. I sold my car. It was a black sedan I had bought only 2 years before. My pride. I sold it for $12,000 to pay for the first few months of medication. Then I mortgaged the house, $30,000 that went to tests, experimental treatments, consultations with specialists who came from other cities. My friends stopped calling. At first they understood, but then they got tired of my constant cancellations. "I'm sorry, Lorena had a crisis. I can't go out. She needs me. Maybe another day." Eventually they stopped inviting me. My sister Brenda was the only one who insisted on staying close. She came every week with food, encouragement, hugs that I didn't know how much I needed. "Jorge, you look exhausted," she would tell me. "You have to take care of yourself too." But I couldn't. How could I think of myself when Lorena was suffering so much? My routine became mechanical, automatic, unvarying. Waking up at 6 a.m., preparing the special breakfast Dr. Marcello had recommended, sugar-free oatmeal, soft fruits, herbal tea, bringing the tray to bed, feeding her patiently when her hands trembled too much to hold the spoon. Then came bathing, carrying her to the toilet, holding her while she used the bathroom, cleaning her, dressing her. At first, Lorena cried with embarrassment. "You shouldn't have to do this. I'm a burden." But I told her it didn't matter. That was true love. Then the medications. 10 different pills for breakfast, 8 for lunch, 12 before bed. I kept an exhaustive record in a notebook. Exact times, precise doses, noted reactions. Dr. Marcello reviewed that notebook at each consultation and always seemed approving. Afternoons were for physical therapies. I massaged her legs for an hour following the exercises they had taught me. Circular movements on the calves, gentle pressure on the thighs, slow stretches of the ankles. Lorena moaned in pain, but the doctor said it was necessary to prevent total atrophy. At night, the worst part of the crises. They came without warning. Suddenly, Lorena would start to tremble violently. Her eyes would roll back. Her breathing would become erratic. I would rush to her side, hold her, talk softly until it passed. Sometimes they lasted 5 minutes, other times half an hour. After each crisis, she was exhausted, vulnerable, scared. "I don't want to die. Jorge," she would whisper. "I'm so scared." And I would hug her. I promised her everything would be okay, that I wouldn't let her go. I slept on the sofa to be close if she needed me, 4 hours a night if I was lucky. The rest of the time, I spent awake, attentive to any sound coming from the bedroom. The neighbors saw me less and less. When I went to the supermarket, I would rush back. 20 minutes maximum out of the house. Lorena had a special bell next to the bed that she could press if she needed me. It rang several times while I was at the store, and I returned, leaving the cart halfway, to find her crying, saying she had been afraid of being alone. Months, years passed. I aged suddenly. At 46, when this began, I still looked young. Now, at 51, I have completely gray hair, deep wrinkles, and a back that constantly aches from carrying Lorena so much. But I never complained because this was what you did when you truly love someone. You sacrificed, gave everything, and asked for nothing in return. Until Dr. Marcello retired, he notified us a month in advance. "I'm sorry to leave you," he said with tears in his eyes, "but I can't do it anymore. Age doesn't forgive." He recommended Dr. Martine, a young specialist with an excellent reputation. The first consultation with Dr. Martine was strange from the start. He reviewed all of Lorena's files with an expression I couldn't interpret. He asked questions Dr. Marcello had never asked. He ordered new tests, complete blood tests, MRI scans. "I want to make sure the current treatment is correct," he explained. 2 weeks later, he called me alone to his office, and that's when he said those words that destroyed my reality. "Jorge, your wife is perfectly healthy." I couldn't believe him. I simply couldn't. I told him he was wrong, that he didn't know the case like Dr. Marcello, that he had only been treating Lorena for 2 weeks, but he stood firm. "I have reviewed every study, every analysis, every x-ray from the last 5 years," he told me in a calm but serious voice. "There is no degenerative disease, no nerve damage, no actual muscle atrophy. The new studies I ordered confirm it. Your wife can walk perfectly." He opened a folder in front of me and began to show me papers full of medical terms I didn't fully understand. But what I did understand were his next words. "The medications she takes are not for any serious illness. They are vitamin supplements and mild anxiolytics. Nothing that justifies the treatment you describe and the episodes you call crises. There is no medical evidence that they are real." I felt the room spin around me. "That's impossible," I whispered. "I've seen her suffer. I've seen her tremors, her pain, her weakness. I've carried her completely inert body." Dr. Martine sighed, took off his glasses, and looked directly into my eyes. "Jorge, I've seen cases like this before, not many, but enough to recognize the pattern. Your wife suffers from something. Yes, but it's not physical, it's psychological. Either she truly believes she's sick, which requires immediate psychiatric treatment, or," he paused for a long, uncomfortable moment, "or she's deliberately faking. And if it's the second case, you need to protect yourself. You need to get out of this situation." I fell silent. There were no words. My entire reality, everything I had believed for 5 years, was crumbling before me. "Dr. Marcello knew this?" I asked with a trembling voice. Dr. Martine hesitated before answering. I reviewed Dr. Marcello's notes. They are inconsistent. Some diagnoses are not supported by the studies. Some prescriptions are strange. I can't say for sure whether he knew or didn't know, but I can tell you that now, with clear evidence in front of you, you need to make decisions. He handed me copies of all the new studies. "Take these. Consult whoever you want. But please, Jorge, be careful. If what I suspect is true, you have been manipulated for years, and people capable of maintaining such a lie are dangerous." I left that office like a zombie, put the papers in my backpack, and drove home without really thinking about anything. My brain had shut down. It was too much, too big, too impossible. When I entered the house, Lorena was in bed, as always, the TV on a cooking show she liked to watch. She heard me arrive and turned her head with that weak smile I knew so well. "How is it, love?" she asked. "What did Dr. Martine say?" I had to make a huge effort for my voice to sound normal. "Everything's fine. He says to continue with the current treatment. That you're stable." She sighed with relief. "That's good. I get scared when they change doctors. You never know if the new one will understand my case." I nodded. I told her I was going to prepare lunch. I went to the kitchen and leaned against the refrigerator, breathing deeply, trying not to collapse. What if Dr. Martine was right? What if all this was a lie? But how? How could someone fake something like this for 5 years? For what? What did Lorena gain from this? I prepared the food automatically, salt-free boiled chicken, steamed vegetables, white rice, the special diet she supposedly needed. I took it to her in bed on the tray, helped her sit up. I arranged the pillows behind her back. While she ate, I watched her. I really watched her, looking for I don't know what signs of lies, cracks in her act, but I saw nothing different. She was the same Lorena, as always. She ate slowly and carefully. When she finished, she thanked me with a kiss on the cheek. "You're so good to me," she murmured. I don't know what I'd do without you. That night, I couldn't have dinner. I told her I had a stomachache. I sat on the sofa while she watched TV from bed. Every sound she made, every movement, every word, I analyzed, looking for something, anything to confirm or deny what Dr. Martine had said. At 10 p.m., I gave her medications. She took them all, one by one, with sips of water. Then she asked me to massage her legs because she felt cramps. I did it as I did every night. My hands knew every inch of her legs. And as I touched them, I thought of the doctor's words. There is no actual muscle atrophy. But her legs felt weak, thin. Or had they always been that way, and I was just seeing what I wanted to see? Are you okay, Jorge? Lorena asked suddenly. You seem distracted. I'm tired, I replied. Just that. She extended her hand and caressed my cheek. Sleep well tonight. I'll be fine. Don't worry about me. I stayed on the sofa, lying with the light off. Lorena fell asleep quickly. I heard her breathing become slow and deep, but I couldn't close my eyes. Dr. Martine's words echoed in my head again and again. Run from her. Run from Lorena, from the woman I had been married to for 16 years, from the person I had dedicated every minute of the last 5 years to. It was absurd, impossible. There had to be an explanation. Maybe Dr. Martine was the one who was wrong. Maybe the new studies were flawed. Maybe at 3 a.m. I heard a noise, a soft creak like someone moving in bed. Then another and another. I barely sat up on the sofa without making a sound. From where I was, I could see the bedroom door. It was ajar, as we always left it, so I could hear if Lorena needed me during the night. There was more noise, the sound of sheets rustling. Then footsteps, footsteps. My heart started beating so hard I could hear it in my ears. I got up from the sofa with all the care in the world. Every muscle in my body was tense. I walked barefoot toward the bedroom door, barely breathing. I peeked through the crack and saw my wife standing, completely standing, next to the bed, stretching her arms above her head like someone who had just woken up from a comfortable nap. She wasn't trembling. She wasn't weak. She wasn't holding on to anything. She walked to the dresser. She walked with normal, steady steps, without the slightest trace of the weakness that had supposedly kept her bedridden for 5 years. She bent down behind the furniture and pulled out something, a cell phone, one I had never seen. She turned it on. The light from the screen illuminated her face, and then she smiled. A smile I had never seen on her, wide, satisfied, almost cruel. She dialed a number, put the phone to her ear, and spoke in a low voice, but loud enough for me to hear. Yes, it's me. He's asleep. A pause. No, everything's still perfect. The idiot suspects nothing. My legs almost gave out. I had to hold onto the doorframe. Lorena laughed. A soft, almost musical laugh. How much longer? I don't know, until I get what I want. The house is almost in my name. I just need him to sign a couple more papers. I felt nauseous. Cold, a cold that ran from my head to my feet. Relax, Maricela. I've handled this for 5 years. I'm not going to ruin it now. Maricela, her best friend, the woman who came to visit her every month, who cried with her, who told me how lucky Lorena was to have a husband like me. Yes, I know. Dr. Marcelo was a gift from heaven. That old man swallowed every word I told him. And Jorge, poor thing, he's so good, so naive. He does everything I ask. I moved away from the door without making a sound. Each step took superhuman effort. I felt my legs wouldn't respond, that the world was tilting, that nothing was real. I went back to the sofa and laid down exactly as I had been before, with my eyes closed, pretending to sleep. I heard Lorena hang up the phone. I heard her footsteps approaching the bedroom door. There was a long silence. She was watching me, making sure I was still asleep. I kept my breathing slow, deep, regular, as if nothing in the world disturbed me, as if I hadn't just discovered that my entire life was a lie. Finally, I heard her return to bed. The creak of the mattress when she lay down, the rustle of the sheets settling over her body, and I stayed there in the darkness with my eyes closed, processing what I had just seen, what I had just heard. Dr. Martine was right, completely right. Lorena was faking everything, every moan, every cry, every crisis, every moment of weakness. 5 years of my life, 5 years of sacrifice, of love, of absolute dedication, all based on a monstrous lie. But why? To get the house. That was it. Money, property. There shouldn't have been more. No one maintained such a farce just for a house. There was something deeper, more twisted, and I needed to find out what it was before I did anything, because now I understood something fundamental. If Lorena was capable of lying to me for 5 years, of watching me slowly destroy myself to care for her, of manipulating me with such coldness, then she was dangerous, much more dangerous than I had imagined. I couldn't confront her yet, not without evidence, not without a plan. So that night, I didn't sleep. I stayed awake on the sofa, planning, thinking, try to remember every detail of the last 5 years with new eyes. When dawn broke, I got up as usual. I prepared breakfast. I entered the bedroom with the tray. Lorena was in bed, exactly as I'd left her the night before, with that expression of fragility that now made my stomach churn. "Good morning, love," she said in a weak voice. "Did you sleep well?" "As always," I replied with a smile that physically hurt to make. I fed her, helped her go to the bathroom, gave her medications. I did everything exactly the same as always, while inside I felt like I was disintegrating. When we finished the morning routine, I told her I needed to go to the supermarket. She nodded, asked me not to take too long. I promised I would be back soon, but I didn't go to the supermarket. I went to the bank. I needed to know how much money we had, how much she had actually spent in the last 5 years, and, above all, I needed to check if there were movements I didn't know about. The bank executive greeted me with his usual kindness. I asked him for a complete statement of account for the last 5 years. He looked at me strangely, but processed it without asking questions. I sat in the waiting room and reviewed the papers line by line, withdrawal by withdrawal, deposit by deposit, and there was the evidence. During the last 5 years, I had withdrawn approximately $10,000 for medical expenses. It was a brutal amount that had forced me to mortgage the house, sell everything valuable I owned, live in poverty. But according to these statements, Lorena had made transfers that I never authorized. Small amounts, 2 or 3 times a month, always less than $1,000 to avoid suspicion. To an account I didn't recognize, I mentally added, in 5 years those transfers totaled almost $40,000. $40,000 that had left our joint account without my knowledge. I asked the executive if he could trace who owned the destination account. He told me he needed a court order for that, but he could see it was an account at the same bank registered 6 years ago. 6 years. 1 year before Lorena got sick. This hadn't been improvised. This had been planned with time, with care, with a coldness that made me tremble. I left the bank with the papers in my hand and didn't know where to go. I couldn't go home yet. I couldn't face her. I needed to think. I drove aimlessly for an hour. Finally, I ended up in the parking lot of a coffee shop. I sat there staring at the steering while trying to breathe. My phone rang. It was Lorena. "Where are you, love? You said you were going to the supermarket. It's been a long time." Her voice sounded worried, even scared. "Sorry, honey." There was a big line. "I'm on my way back. Hurry, please. I feel very lonely, and I think I'm going to have a crisis." A crisis. How many times had I heard those words? How many times had I dropped everything to rush to her side? How many times had I felt that terror of arriving late, of something terrible happening while I wasn't there? And it was all a lie. "I'm coming," I said and hung up. But I didn't move from the parking lot. I stayed there for another 15 minutes, letting her wait, letting her worry. When I finally got home, Lorena was crying in bed. "Why did you take so long?" she sobbed. "I was so scared. I felt like I was going to faint, and you weren't here." I sat next to her. I stroked her hair, told her I was sorry, that there was traffic, and while I did it, I watched her. I studied every gesture, every tear, every tremor in her voice. She was good, very good. If I hadn't seen what I saw last night, if I hadn't heard that phone conversation, I would have believed every second of this act. The next few days were torture. Maintaining normalcy while inside, I was consumed by rage and pain. Continuing to care for her, feed her, bathe her while knowing it was all a grotesque farce. But I needed more evidence. I needed to understand the complete picture before acting. I started paying attention to things I had previously ignored, small details that didn't fit, like the fact that Lorena never had crises when visitors were present, only when we were alone, or how her pains always improved right after I did something she wanted. One night, after giving her her medications, I took the boxes and brought them to the bathroom. I photographed all of them, every name, every dose, every indication. The next day, while she was taking her obligatory nap, I searched online, vitamin B complex, magnesium, mild anxiolytic. Nothing that required a complicated prescription, nothing that cost the $5,000 monthly we supposedly paid. Where's that money going? Then I reviewed our medical receipts, the ones Lorena kept in a special filing cabinet. Invoices from Dr. Marcello, invoices from laboratories, invoices from studies. There was something strange about the dates. Some studies appeared invoiced twice, others had different amounts each time. I took photos of everything with my cell phone, documenting every inconsistency. I also started pretending to go out, but returned early. I parked the car a block from the house and walked back, entering through the back door as silently as possible. The first time I did it, I heard Lorena talking on the phone. Again, that cell phone I didn't know about. I don't know how much longer I can keep this up. Jorge is acting weird. Lately, I press myself against the hallway wall, holding my breath. No, I don't think he knows anything. But he's quieter. He looks at me differently. A pause. Maricela. I know, but I'm scared. If he finds out something before I sign the house papers. Another longer pause. You're right. Just one more month. As soon as I have the property in my name, I can miraculously start to get better. And then, well, we'll see. I felt my blood boil. I had to clench my fists until my nails dug into my palms to keep from going in there and shouting everything I knew. But I restrained myself because I understood something crucial. This wasn't just about money or property. This was about control, about power, about keeping me exactly where she wanted me, doing exactly what she needed. And I had been the perfect fool. I left the house the way I had come in. I drove around the block. I parked in our usual spot and entered through the front door, making noise as always. I'm home, love. I shouted from the entrance. That's good. Her weak voice replied from the bedroom. I missed you. That night, while I was preparing dinner, my sister Brenda called me. Jorge, I need to talk to you. Can I come over tomorrow? Did something happen? I just need to talk to you alone. It's important. Something in her tone made me nervous. Okay, come tomorrow at 3. Lorena will be taking her nap. When I hung up, Lorena asked me who it was. Brenda. She wants to come visit you tomorrow. Lorena grimaced. Does it have to be tomorrow? You know how visitors tire me. I told Lorena that Brenda would only stay a moment. Not to worry. She sighed as if it were a great sacrifice, as if receiving my sister was an unbearable burden for her delicate state of health. How ironic this whole situation was. For 5 years, I had limited visits to avoid tiring Lorena. I had kept my family, my friends, everyone away because supposedly she needed peace and quiet. Now I understood the truth. Lorena didn't want visitors because visitors made it harder to maintain her act. It was exhausting to pretend to be sick for hours. Easier to keep me isolated, controlled, dependent only on her. The next day, Brenda arrived exactly at 3. I led her to the kitchen. Lorena was in the bedroom with the door closed, supposedly sleeping. My sister looked nervous. She had a folder in her hands that she was gripping tightly. Jorge, I need to show you something, and please don't get angry with me. I sat in front of her with my heart already racing. What's wrong, Brenda? She opened the folder and took out several printed photographs. She placed them on the table in front of me. They were photos of Lorena. In different places, in a coffee shop, in a shopping mall, walking down the street with shopping bags, walking perfectly normally, without help, without weakness. Where did you get these? I asked with a trembling voice. 3 months ago, I hired a private investigator, Brenda admitted with tears in her eyes. Jorge, forgive me. I know it sounds horrible. I know I invaded her privacy. But I couldn't keep watching you destroy yourself for her. Something didn't add up. It never added up. I looked at the photos with trembling hands. There were dates and times on each one, all taken during times when Lorena was supposed to be in bed, too weak to move. A photo from 2 months ago. Lorena in an elegant restaurant laughing with a woman I recognized, Maricela. Another from 6 weeks ago, Lorena leaving a beauty salon. Another more recent from 2 weeks ago, Lorena at the entrance of a bank. The same bank where I had reviewed our accounts. There's more, Brenda said with a broken voice. The investigator followed her for 2 months. She leaves the house approximately 3 times a week, always when you go to the supermarket or run errands. She has a routine. She knows exactly how much time she has before you return. I felt I couldn't breathe. Why didn't you tell me before? Because I wasn't sure how you would react. Because I was afraid you wouldn't believe me. Because I needed to have solid evidence before shattering your world like this. Brenda took my hand. Jorge, your wife is deceiving you. I don't know exactly why or for what, but she's using you. And I couldn't keep silent any longer. I told her everything Dr. Martin had told me, what I saw that morning, the phone conversation, the suspicious bank movements, everything poured out of me like a torrent. Brenda cried as she listened. We have to do something, she finally said. You can't keep living like this. This is abuse, Jorge. It's economic, emotional, psychological abuse. I know, but I need more evidence. I need to understand everything before confronting her. If she has planned this for so long, she surely has backups. She surely has a way to turn the situation around. Brenda nodded. The investigator can continue working. We can document everything, her outings, her meetings, her movements. We can also investigate Maricela, see what role she plays in all this. I told her yes, to continue, that in the meantime I would continue pretending normalcy, gathering evidence from within. Brenda left half an hour later. Before leaving, she hugged me tightly. You're stronger than you think, brother. You'll get through this. When I entered the bedroom, Lorena was awake, looking at me with a curious expression. What did Brenda want? Just to say hello, bring you this. I showed her a bag of fruit that my sister had brought as a pretext. Lorena looked at the bag with disinterest. How nice. Say hello to her for me next time. That night, I searched the entire house while Lorena slept. I looked in places I had never looked before because I had no reason to distrust. In Lorena's closet, behind shoe boxes she supposedly no longer used, I found clothes. Clothes I didn't know. Elegant dresses, expensive blouses, unworn high heels. Where'd she bought all this? With what money? I kept searching. Under the mattress, on her side of the bed, there was an envelope. I carefully took it out. Inside were documents. Documents for the transfer of property of the house solely in Lorena's name. Almost complete. Only 2 signatures were missing, mine and a notary's. There was also a handwritten draft letter in Lorena's handwriting. Dear Jorge, when you read this, I will have left. I need to start a new life, away from the illness that has consumed me these years. I know you won't understand, but I need to do it. The house is the only thing I ask of you. After all you sacrificed for me, I deserve at least that. Don't look for me. Please respect my decision. I read that letter 3 times. The plan was clear. Now, to get the house in her name. Then to miraculously recover and disappear, leaving me with nothing. No house, no savings, no dignity, and surely with a mountain of debts that she had accumulated in my name. I put everything back exactly as it was. I took photos of each document with my cell phone. The following days, I investigated further. I reviewed old emails on the computer we shared. Lorena thought I didn't know her password, but I had seen her type it hundreds of times. I found emails between her and Maricela dating back 6 years, before the supposed illness. In one of them, Maricela wrote, "Are you sure this will work? It's a long time to pretend." And Lorena replied, "Jorge is predictable, kind to the point of being foolish. It's going to work. I just need patience." Another email from 4 years ago. "Dr. Marcelo is falling in love with me. It's perfect. He'll sign whatever I put in front of him." And Maricela's reply, "You're brilliant, evil but brilliant." There was more, much more. A complete history of manipulation, of cold and calculated planning. I also found emails with a lawyer I didn't know, discussing how to maximize her gains in an eventual divorce, how to ensure she kept the house, how to present herself as the victim of a difficult marriage where she had been sick and I had supposedly been negligent. everything backwards, everything inverted. She planned not only to steal everything from me, but also to destroy my reputation. I printed every email, saved them in a folder that I hid in the car. A week after the discovery, I received a call from Dr. Marcello. He asked me to come see him. He said it was urgent, that he needed to talk to me about Lorena. I went to his house. He no longer had an office. He was retired. He lived in a modest house on the outskirts of the city. He opened the door, looking haggard. He had aged 10 years and a month since I last saw him. "Jorge, sit down, please. I need to tell you something I should have told you years ago." I sat, waiting. Dr. Marcello covered his face with his hands. Lorena was never sick. Never. It was all a lie. And I was an accomplice. I felt a mix of relief and rage. Relief that someone else confirmed the truth. Rage that this man, this supposed professional, had participated in the destruction of my life. Why? I asked in a harsh voice. Because I was a foolish old man in love, he admitted with tears in his eyes. Lorena came to my office 6 years ago. Alone. She told me she needed my help, that she had financial problems, that her husband, you, were good, but naive, and that she needed to secure her future. He continued talking, confessing everything. How Lorena seduced him, how she convinced him to falsify diagnoses, how he, lonely and flattered by the attention of a younger woman, agreed to everything. I never thought it would last so long. I thought it would be months, maybe a year, but 5 years passed, and you were still there sacrificing yourself, destroying yourself. And I couldn't stop it. I was too involved, too committed. Why are you telling me now? Because Dr. Martin called me, confronted me, told me he knew something was wrong with Lorena's files, threatened to report me to the medical board if I didn't confess. He wiped away his tears, and because my conscience doesn't let me sleep, I've truly gotten sick from the guilt. I don't have much time left to live, Jorge, and I need to make amends, even a little, for the harm I caused. He handed me a folder. Here's everything. My real notes, the false diagnoses I made, copies of the conversations I had with Lorena, everything you need to prove the truth. I took the folder with trembling hands. I left Dr. Marcello's house with the folder pressed against my chest as if it were the most valuable thing in the world. And it was. It was the key to unmasking the entire lie. It was my freedom on paper. But something inside me had broken in a way I didn't know was possible. It wasn't just Lorena's betrayal. It was the betrayal of a doctor I had trusted blindly. It was understanding that for 5 years, while I sacrificed myself to the point of destruction, they both laughed at me behind my back. I drove for hours aimlessly. I ended up in an overlook on the outskirts of the city, watching the sunset. And there, alone in my car, I allowed myself to cry for the first time since all this began. I cried for the 5 lost years, for the job I loved and would never recover, for the friends who drifted away, for the man I was before and who no longer existed, for the trust one would never again have in anyone. But I also cried with relief because I finally had proof, because I could finally start planning my escape from this nightmare. When I got home, it was almost 9 p.m. Lorena was furious. "Where were you? Hours have passed. You weren't answering your phone." I had a terrible crisis, and I was alone. I looked around the bedroom. Everything was in perfect order. No sign of a crisis, no mess. Just Lorena in bed with her hair perfectly combed. Fresh makeup she definitely didn't have when I left that morning. "I had to run some errands," I replied calmly. "What errands? You never told me anything." "Bank stuff, nothing important." She studied me with narrowed eyes. I could see her mind working, trying to decipher if I knew anything, if I suspected. "Are you sure everything's okay? Jorge, you've been very strange lately." "I'm tired, Lorena." "Just that. 5 years taking care of you tirelessly. Anyone would be tired." I saw her expression soften, how she activated manipulation mode. "I know, my love, and you don't know how much it hurts me to be a burden to you. Sometimes I think you'd be better off without me." Before, those words would have crushed me. I would have rushed to hug her, to tell her never to say that she was my life. Now I only felt disgust. "Don't say that," I replied mechanically. "I'm going to prepare dinner." In the kitchen, while cooking, I called Brenda. "I need a lawyer, the best divorce lawyer you can find, and I need them to be discreet." I'm already on it, she replied. I have a meeting scheduled for you the day after tomorrow. His name is Omar Vega. He's famous for complicated cases. I briefly told him the situation, and he's very interested. Thank you, Brenda. I don't know what I'd do without you. That's what siblings do. We take care of each other. 2 days later, I met Omar in his downtown office. He was a man in his 50s with sharp, intelligent eyes. I showed him everything. The private investigator's photos, Dr. Marcello's documents, the emails, the bank statements, the property transfer documents I found hidden. Omar reviewed everything with meticulous attention. When he finished, he leaned back in his chair and whistled softly. This is one of the most elaborate cases of matrimonial fraud I've ever seen. Your wife not only emotionally deceived you, she committed financial fraud, conspired with a medical professional, falsified documents. This goes beyond divorce, Jorge. This could be criminal. I don't want revenge, I said tiredly. I just want out. I want to get back what's mine and move on with my life. I understand, but you need to protect yourself legally. This woman is dangerous. When she finds out you know the truth, she could do anything. Omar explained the plan. First, secure all bank accounts. Second, gather even more evidence. Third, file for divorce with all the evidence attached. Fourth, request a restraining order if necessary. How long will it take? I asked. If we work quickly, 2 weeks to have everything ready. But Jorge, I need you to continue acting normal in the meantime. You can't give any signs that you know anything. If she suspects, she could destroy evidence or transfer the money she still has access to. I nodded. 2 more weeks of pretending, 2 more weeks of caring for the woman who had destroyed my life, 2 more weeks of enduring, but I had a goal now, an end in sight. During those days, I followed my routine, as always, but I also investigated deeper. I called the medical insurance company to review all claims made in Lorena's name in the last 5 years. The representative told me they had paid more than $200,000 in treatments and medications. $200,000 for an illness that didn't exist. Can I get a detailed breakdown of all those payments? I asked. Of course, sir. I'll email it to you today. When I received the document, I spent hours reviewing it. Many of the treatments were never performed. Many of the medications were never purchased. The money had been diverted through phantom clinics and falsified prescriptions. Dr. Marcello had been more than a romantic accomplice. He had been a financial partner in this fraud. I also hired a forensic accountant whom Omar recommended. I gave him access to all our accounts. In 3 days, he delivered a devastating report. Lorena had been systematically stealing not only the transfers I had discovered, there was more. Credit cards opened in my name that I didn't know about, personal loans I never authorized. Everything added up to more than $180,000 in debts that I supposedly owed. How was it possible that she did all this without my signature? I asked the accountant. Forgery, and she probably had help from someone with access to legal documents. You'll need to report this to the authorities. Omar was right. This was criminal. A week before we filed for divorce, Lorena surprised me with something. Jorge, I need you to sign these papers, she told me one afternoon, handing me documents I immediately recognized. The property transfer papers. The lawyer says it's better to have the house only in my name for tax and medical insurance purposes. They say that way we can qualify for more government aid. I stared at the papers, feeling rage boil inside me. What lawyer? I asked with feigned calm. One Maricela recommended to me. He specializes in complicated medical cases. Of course, Maricela. Let me read them first, I said. There are many pages. I briefly saw panic in her eyes, but she recovered quickly. Of course, love, but the lawyer says he needs the papers signed this week. It's urgent to process the aid. I understand. I'll review them tonight, and we'll talk tomorrow. That night, I took photos of every page. I sent them to Omar. He replied in minutes. Don't sign anything. These documents not only take away the house, they also make you responsible for all future medical debts. It's a perfect legal trap. The next day, I told Lorena that I needed my own lawyer to review the papers before signing. She tried to convince me that it wasn't necessary, that I should trust her, that I was only hurting her with my distrust. She used every tactic she knew, she cried. She yelled at me. She faked a crisis. She told me I was killing her with my lack of faith. I stood firm. I'm not signing anything without a lawyer reviewing it. If it's really just for taxes, there will be no problem for someone else to confirm it. Lorena didn't speak to me for 2 days after that. She turned her back on me when I entered the room. She rejected the food I prepared for her. She acted as if I were the villain, and I let her because I knew that in less than a week everything would end. Brenda came to visit me the day before filing the lawsuit. "Are you ready?" she asked me. "More than ready." "Are you afraid of how she'll react?" "I'm afraid," I admitted. "But I'm also exhausted. 5 years of living a lie. I need it to end. It will end. And after this, you'll be able to start healing." She hugged me tightly. That night, the last night before everything exploded, I stayed awake staring at the ceiling, thinking about the man I was 5 years ago. A successful engineer, with friends, with plans, with a life of his own. Lorena had stolen more than money from me. She had stolen my time, my youth, my trust, my dignity, but she wouldn't steal my future. At 3 a.m., I heard the familiar sounds. Lorena getting up, walking, talking on the phone with Maricela. I almost have him convinced to sign. Yes, he's more stubborn than I thought. No, he doesn't suspect anything real. He's just being difficult. 1 more week, 2 at most, and everything will be mine. I got up from the sofa that morning and walked to the bedroom door. This time I didn't hide. I opened the door completely and turned on the light. Lorena was standing by the window with the phone in her hand, completely paralyzed. Our gazes met. I saw the panic in her eyes. I saw her brain working at 1,000 miles an hour, looking for an explanation, an excuse, anything. "I'll call you later," she whispered into the phone and hung up. We stood there staring at each other in silence for what seemed like an eternity. "Jorge, this isn't what it seems," she began, and her voice was already taking on that weak, trembling tone I knew so well. "No," I said firmly. "I'm not going to listen to any more lies." I saw her legs begin to tremble, how she put a hand to her chest, how her breathing became agitated. She was starting one of her crises, one of her perfect performances, but this time I didn't run to hold her. This time I just stood there watching her. "My chest hurts," she gasped, falling against the wall. "Jorge, please, I need my pills. I think I'm going to have an attack." "Your pills are just vitamins, Lorena. You're not going to have any attack because you don't have any illness." I saw her truly turn pale this time, not from illness, but from fear. What are you saying? Are you tired? You don't know what you're saying? I know exactly what I'm saying. I know you were never sick. I know everything about your plan with Maricela and Dr. Marcelo. I know about the stolen money, about the secret accounts, about the falsified documents. Lorena slowly straightened up. The mask of fragility fell from her face as if it had never been there. What remained was something cold, calculating, almost unrecognizable. "How long have you known?" she asked in a completely different voice, firm, without the slightest trace of weakness. "Long enough," she laughed, a short, bitter laugh. "Dr. Martin, I should have imagined that idiot would ruin everything. Marcelo would never have said anything. Marcelo told me everything a week ago. He's dying, and he wanted to clear his conscience." I saw how she processed this information, how she calculated how much he could have revealed, how much I knew. "Fine," she finally said, crossing her arms. "And what are you going to do now, Jorge?" "Divorce you. Go ahead, but you won't get out of this well. I have witnesses who will say you were a negligent husband, that you abandoned me when I needed you most, that you emotionally abused me." "Witnesses? Are you referring to Maricela, your accomplice?" "I'm referring to neighbors who have seen you leave me alone for hours, to friends who can testify about your distant behavior, to medical records that show my illness. False medical records that a corrupt doctor created. I have his complete confession, Lorena, in writing signed." I saw something in her break, but instead of giving up, she became more aggressive. "And what do you think a judge will believe you? I'm the sick wife, the victim. You're the man who's abandoning me after pretending to care for me. Who do you think will generate more sympathy?" "I don't care about sympathy. I care about the truth, and the truth is documented. Photos of you walking perfectly well, videos from the private investigator I hired. Emails where you planned everything with Marisela, bank statements that show the systematic theft, documents from the forensic accountant that prove the financial fraud. I saw the color drain from her face. Are you lying? No. For the first time in 5 years, someone in this relationship is telling the complete truth. Lorena slumped onto the bed, not as a victim this time, but as someone who had just realized she lost the game. Why? I asked, and my voice broke despite myself. Why'd you do all this? If you wanted a divorce, if you wanted the house, if you wanted money, we could have talked. You didn't have to destroy me like this. She looked at me with something that could have been sadness or simply tiredness, because by talking I wouldn't have gotten anything. You're too attached to your principles, Jorge. You would have fought for the house, for the money, for everything. You would have made the divorce long and expensive. This way, with the illness, I just had to wait. You just gave me everything because you felt guilty, because you believed it was the right thing to do. So it was all for greed, simple and pure greed. It was for survival, to secure my future. I'm 48, Jorge. It's not easy to start over at this age. I needed resources. You had a husband who loved you, who would have given his life for you. He was literally giving it. I didn't want your love. I wanted your money. I wanted stability, and I had it all perfectly planned until that damn new doctor had to stick his nose where it didn't belong. I sat on the sofa, suddenly utterly exhausted. Tomorrow they'll serve you with divorce papers. They'll also investigate you for fraud. The medical insurance company is already aware of the false claims. The prosecutor's office has all the evidence about the accounts and falsified documents. Lorena jumped up. You can't do this to me. I'm your wife. You're a stranger. I don't know who you really are. I never did. Jorge, wait, can we fix this? I can give the money back. I can. There's nothing to fix. This ended 5 years ago. I just didn't know it. She changed tactics again. She knelt in front of me with tears that this time might have been real. Please don't do this to me. I beg you. I'll go to prison. My life will be ruined. My life is already ruined, Lorena. 5 years of my life that I'll never get back. A job I lost. Destroyed friendships, deteriorated health, trampled dignity, all because of her lies. I was weak, I was stupid, but we can start over. We can. No. I interrupted, standing up. There's no new beginning for us. I'm sleeping at Brenda's house tonight. Tomorrow I'll start moving out permanently. You can stay here until the legal process determines what happens with the house. You have nowhere to go, no money, no job. I have my dignity back, and that's more than I've had in the last 5 years. I packed some things in a suitcase. Lorena followed me around the house, alternating between pleas and threats. You'll regret this. I'll tell everyone you abandoned me. No one will believe you. Please, Jorge, don't leave me. I ignored everything, finished packing, and headed for the door. Jorge, she called me one last time. Her voice sounded different, more real than ever. I turned around. Did you ever love me? She asked. Even a little, or was it all just duty and sacrifice? I looked into the eyes of this woman who had shared my life for 16 years, who had been my wife, my partner, my responsibility. I loved you with everything I had. I loved you to the point of losing myself, and that was my mistake, not yours. I learned that love shouldn't destroy people. It shouldn't cost everything you are. And now what do you feel? Nothing, just tiredness and a need to heal. I left that house and didn't look back. Brenda received me with open arms. She made me tea, gave me a place to sleep, let me cry as much as I needed. It's over, she would tell me as she hugged me. You're free now. But it didn't feel like freedom yet. It felt like walking through ruins, trying to find something to rebuild. The next day, Omar called me early. The papers have been delivered. Lorena has 24 hours to respond. I also filed a motion to freeze all joint accounts and protect the remaining assets and criminal investigations. In process, the medical insurance company is furious. They're going all in. The prosecutor's office also showed interest when they saw the magnitude of the fraud. Days passed. Lorena hired a lawyer, an aggressive type who tried to paint me as the villain. They spread rumors that I had been abusive, negligent, controlling, but the evidence spoke louder than any rumor. The photos, the videos, the documents, Dr. Marcello's confession, all created such a solid case that Lorena's lawyer began to talk about settlements. She wants to negotiate, Omar told me. She's willing to waive any claim on the house and accounts. If you don't press criminal charges and the money she stole, she says she has almost nothing, that she's already spent it, but she's willing to sign a payment plan to return what she can. I thought about it for days. The part of me that wanted revenge wanted to see her pay completely. I wanted justice in its purest form. But the part of me that was exhausted, that just wanted peace, that needed to close this chapter and move on, wanted to end everything. I told Omar that I wanted to think about the settlement proposal. It wasn't a decision I could take lightly. There was too much at stake, too many emotions involved, too much pain to process. That week I met with Dr. Martin. He had also been contacted by the authorities. His medical license was under review. He would probably lose it permanently. I didn't come to ask for your forgiveness, he told me when we sat in a discreet coffee shop. I know I don't deserve it. I came to give you something else that might help you. He handed me an envelope. What's this? Records of all the conversations I had with Lorena. I recorded them at first out of professional caution, then because something in me knew this would end badly. There are hours of material where she openly admits the farce, where she plans every detail, where she makes fun of you. I took the envelope without opening it. Why didn't you give me this before? Because I'm a coward. Because when Marcello died 2 weeks ago, I realized I could be next, and I don't want to die knowing I allowed this to continue. Marcello died? I repeated softly. Pancreatic cancer, fast and painful. In his last days, he called me crying, saying all this had made him sick, that guilt had eaten him from within. Dr. Martin paused. I don't know if guilt literally killed him, but I know it didn't let him live in peace. I left that meeting with the envelope and with very complicated thoughts. Marcello had died carrying his guilt. Lorena would live carrying the consequences of her actions. And I would have to live carrying the scars of 5 years of deception. That night, I listened to some of the recordings. It was like opening a wound that was just beginning to heal. Hearing Lorena's voice, so different when she thought no one else was listening, so cold and calculating, made my stomach churn. In one recording from 3 years ago, she said, Jorge is perfect for this. He's smart enough to earn good money, but emotional enough to be manipulated. As long as I cry, he'll do anything. In another, from just 6 months ago, sometimes it disgusts me to have to pretend I care, but it's just a little more time, I can endure it. I turned off the recordings. I didn't need to hear more. There was already enough evidence. There was already enough pain. The next day, I told Omar that I would accept the agreement, but with very specific conditions. Lorena would relinquish all claims to the house, accounts, and any assets in my name. She would sign a document admitting the fraud and agreeing not to publicly defame my name. She would return all the money she could in a court-supervised payment plan, and in exchange, I would not press the most serious criminal charges. And the medical insurance? Omar asked. They can do what they want. I'm not going to intervene on her behalf, but I'm also not going to push further. Let justice take its natural course on that front. Omar drafted the documents. Lorena's lawyer reviewed them. There were back and forths, negotiations over amounts and deadlines, but we finally reached an agreement. 3 weeks after I left that house, we met in Omar's office to sign the final divorce papers and the agreement. Lorena arrived with her lawyer. She looked different. She had aged. She had deep dark circles under her eyes. She had lost weight. Her hair was messy. It was ironic. Now she looked truly sick. We sat on opposite sides of a long table. We didn't look each other in the eye. Lorena's lawyer spoke first. My client agrees with the proposed terms. She will sign all documents today. Omar nodded and began to pass the papers. One by one, Lorena signed them. I saw her hand tremble slightly. I didn't know if it was acting or if she was genuinely nervous. When we reached the last document, the one that made the divorce official, Lorena paused. Can I speak to Jorge? Alone. Just for a minute. Her lawyer and Omar looked at us. I nodded. We went out into the hallway. We stood facing each other, separated by meters that felt like kilometers. I don't expect you to forgive me, she began. "I know what I did was unforgivable, but I need you to know something." I waited in silence. At first, everything was calculated, everything was a plan, but there were moments, especially in the second and third year, where part of me wanted to stop, where I saw how much you were sacrificing yourself, and something in me felt bad. "And why didn't you stop?" "Because I had already gone too far. Because I was afraid of the consequences. Because it was easier to keep lying than to face the truth." She wiped away a tear. "And because I'm a coward, Jorge, I'm a coward who chose the easy path no matter who I hurt. Is that supposed to make me feel better? No. I just wanted you to know that you're not the only one who lost 5 years. I lost them too. I spent them living a lie, acting all the time, not allowing myself to be real, not even with myself. And now everyone hates me. My family turned their backs on me. Maricela doesn't even answer my calls. I'm completely alone. Those are consequences of your decisions. I know and I accept them, but I want you to know that if I could go back in time, if I could do it differently." "What? You wouldn't?" I interrupted her. "I don't believe you, Lorena. I think if you had the chance, you'd do it again, but with more care not to be discovered." She didn't deny my words, and that told me everything I needed to know. "Goodbye, Lorena," I said, and went back to the office. We signed the last papers. The divorce was made official. After 16 years of marriage, 5 of them in a nightmare, I was finally free. When I left that office, Brenda was waiting outside. She hugged me tightly. "How do you feel?" "Empty, relieved, sad, I don't know. All at the same time. It's normal. You just closed a huge chapter in your life." The following months were about rebuilding, slow, painful, but necessary. I started looking for work. It wasn't easy. I had been out of the job market for 5 years. My experience was outdated. Many companies rejected me. But finally, a small engineering firm gave me an opportunity. It wasn't the position I had before. The salary was barely $2, $800 a month, less than half of what I earned before. But it was a start. My first day of work, I cried in the bathroom. Not from sadness, but from relief. I was becoming productive again. I was becoming myself again. I also started therapy. My therapist, a wise woman named Dr. Amalia, helped me process all the trauma. "What you experienced is called psychological and financial abuse," she explained in one of our sessions. "Lorena isolated you, emotionally manipulated you, financially exploited you. That leaves deep marks. How am I supposed to trust anyone again after this?" I asked. "Little by little, starting by trusting yourself, in your ability to recognize warning signs, in your right to set boundaries, in your worth as a person beyond what you can give to others." We worked on that for months, on rebuilding my self-esteem that had been demolished, on understanding that true love doesn't require self-destruction, on learning that it's okay to put my needs first sometimes. Slowly, I began to reconnect with old friends. Some welcomed me with open arms. Others were more cautious, hurt by years of cancellations and distance. I didn't blame them. My friend Marcelo, with whom I worked for years before quitting, invited me for coffee. "You don't have to explain anything to me," he told me when I started to apologize for disappearing. Brenda told me roughly what happened. That was awful. I have no words, Jorge, but I'm here now if you need me. Recovering those friendships was like watering plants that had been dry for years. It took time, but slowly they began to revive. I also started going out more. At first, only to safe places with Brenda. Then I dared to go alone, to walk in parks, to sit in coffee shops, to live without the constant weight of having to rush back home. The house. That was a separate process. After the divorce, the house was legally in my name, but entering there was painful. Every room held memories. The bedroom where I spent sleepless nights caring for someone who was pretending. The kitchen where I prepared thousands of unnecessary special meals. The sofa where I slept uncomfortably for years. I decided to sell it. Omar helped me with the process. I didn't get much after paying the remaining mortgage, but it was enough to rent a small apartment and have a financial cushion while I stabilized. My new apartment was tiny compared to the house. 1 bedroom, a small living room, a basic kitchen, but it was mine. Every piece of furniture I bought, every decorating decision. Every space was solely mine. The first night, I slept there in my own bed, in my own space, without the burden of caring for anyone else but myself. I slept 10 hours straight. 6 months after the divorce. My life had taken a form I never imagined. It wasn't the life I had before Lorena. That no longer existed and would never return. It was something new, built from ashes, fragile but genuine. At work, I was promoted to a better position. Nothing spectacular, but the salary rose to $2. $500 a month, and I was given an important project. My boss, a man named Ricardo, called me to his office one day. "Jorge, I've noticed your dedication. I know you returned to the industry after some time away, but your work is exceptional. I want you to lead the new project team." I accepted with a mixture of pride and fear. I had forgotten what it felt like for someone to professionally trust me. The project was a success, and with that success came something I didn't expect. Self-confidence. That confidence that Lorena had slowly eroded for 5 years began to rebuild itself. I also resumed old hobbies. I used to play soccer on Sundays before I got married. I stopped when Lorena came in my life because she said she liked us to spend weekends together. Now I played again. My whole body ached after each game. But I felt alive. I felt part of something bigger than my own personal drama. In one of those games, I met Miguel, a man my age who was also rebuilding his life after a difficult divorce. Not as dramatic as yours, he admitted when I told him my story, but equally painful. 15 years with someone who turned out to be different from who I thought. We became friends. We would have dinner after games. We talked about everything, nothing, the healing process, learning to be alone without feeling lonely. "Have you thought about getting into a relationship again?" Miguel asked me one night. "I don't know if I'm ready. I don't know if I ever will be. It's normal to feel that way now, but not everyone is like Lorena, Jorge. There are good people out there. I know. Rationally, I know, but emotionally, I can't even imagine trusting someone like that again." Miguel nodded understandingly. "Give it time, there's no hurry." Meanwhile, Lorena faced her own consequences. Brenda kept me informed, although I didn't ask. The medical insurance company sued her civilly. The case went to trial and she lost. She was ordered to pay $150,000 in restitution. Money she didn't have. She had to declare bankruptcy. She lost everything, moved to a tiny apartment in a dangerous part of the city. She got a job in a supermarket, earning barely enough to survive. Maricela, her accomplice, also faced charges. It turned out she had actively helped falsify some documents. She received 2 years of probation and a considerable fine. "Lorena asked about you. Brenda told me one day, through her lawyer. She wants to know if you'd be willing to talk to her." "What for?" "I don't know. Maybe to get closure, or maybe to ask for help. I'm not sure." I thought about it for days. Part of me, the part that still remembered the first years of our marriage when things were good, felt curious. But the wiser part, the one that had learned to protect itself, knew I didn't know her anything. "No," I finally told Brenda. "I have nothing to talk about with her. That chapter is closed." In therapy, Dr. Amalia helped me process that decision. "You have no obligation to give her closure," she explained. "You've already given yourself closure. That's what matters. But sometimes I feel guilty. I know she's suffering. I know she's having a hard time. Jorge, Lorena, is facing the natural consequences of her decisions. It's not your responsibility to rescue her from that. In fact, doing so would be harmful both to you and to her." She was right. I spent 5 years rescuing her from a fake illness. I wasn't going to spend the rest of my life rescuing her from the real consequences of her actions. A year after the divorce, I received a letter. It was from Lorena, handwritten, several pages. I was tempted to throw it away without reading it, but something in me needed to know what it said. The letter was long, full of apologies, explanations, attempts to justify herself. She said she was in therapy, that she was working on being a better person, that she understood the harm she caused. At the end, she wrote, "I don't expect your forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I carry this every day, that I deeply regret it, and that I hope you have found the peace you deserve. I read the letter several times, then put it in a drawer. I didn't reply. I didn't feel I had to reply, but it did make me think about forgiveness. Not the forgiveness she asked for, but the forgiveness I needed to give myself. Because I discovered that part of my pain didn't just come from what Lorena did, but from the guilt I felt. Guilt for not having seen the signs earlier, for having been so naive, for having allowed this to continue for so long. In therapy, we worked on that. You weren't naive, Jorge. You were trusting. And trust in a committed relationship is normal and healthy. What's not normal is for someone to abuse that trust so systematically. But I should have seen something, some sign. Lorena was very good at what she did. She had practice. She had help. She had an elaborate plan. Don't be so hard on yourself. Learning to forgive myself was harder than learning to live without Lorena. But little by little I managed it. 18 months after the divorce, something unexpected happened. I met someone. I wasn't looking. In fact, I was actively avoiding any possibility of romance. But life has strange ways of surprising us. Her name was Brenda, just like my sister, which always caused funny confusion. She was an accountant at the company where I worked. We crossed paths in the cafeteria, in meetings, in the elevator. We started chatting, just casual talks at first about work, about the weather, about nothing important, but slowly those talks became deeper. I discovered that she was also coming out of a difficult relationship, that she understood what it was like to rebuild oneself. I'm not looking for anything serious, she told me when I finally invited her for coffee outside of work. I'm still healing myself too, I admitted. I just thought it would be nice to have company from someone who understands. And it was nice. There was no pressure, no expectations. Just two people enjoying each other's company. We went out several more times to the movies, to dinner, to walk in the park. All casual, light, without commitment. But one night, after a particularly pleasant dinner, she took my hand. I know we said we were going slowly, and I want to keep going slowly, but I also want you to know that I like you. Jorge, I like the person you are. I felt panic for a second. That old fear of trusting, of opening up, of being vulnerable, but I also felt something else. Hope, the possibility that maybe, just maybe, not all people were like Lorena. I like you too, I replied honestly. But I'm scared, very scared. I know, me too, but I think it's worth trying, without rushing, without pressure, just see what happens. And that's what we did. We continued seeing each other, getting to know each other, building something new based on honesty and mutual respect. It wasn't easy. There were moments where my trauma with Lorena got in the way, where I misinterpreted innocent things as warning signs, where my distrust threatened to sabotage something good. But this Brenda was patient, understood, and most importantly, she was honest. When I asked her something, she answered me directly. When there was a problem, we talked about it. It was completely different from what I experienced with Lorena, and that difference gave me hope. 3 years have passed since I left that house. 3 years since I discovered the truth. 3 years of slow but constant rebuilding. Today I'm 54 years old. Physically, I bear the marks of those 5 years of deception. The fully gray hair, the deep wrinkles, the back that aches when it rains, but emotionally I'm in the best place I've been in a long time. My career recovered more than I expected. I'm now a project manager at the engineering firm, earning $3,500 a month. It's not what I earned before Lorena, but it's enough. It allows me to live comfortably, save a little, and help Brenda, my sister, from time to time as she helped me. My relationship with the other Brenda, the accountant, grew slowly like two plants cared for with patience. After a year, we decided to live together. It was terrifying to take that step, but she understood my fears and never pressured me. Sharing space with someone again made me face many ghosts. The first few months, I would wake up at night with anxiety, checking that she was really asleep, looking for signs of deception that didn't exist. But with therapy and Brenda's honest constancy, those episodes became less frequent. I learned that not all relationships are toxic, that not all love requires destructive self-sacrifice, that it's okay to set boundaries and expect reciprocity. I knew little about Lorena in these years. My sister stopped telling me about her because she understood that I needed complete distance. I only know that she continues to work in the supermarket, that she continues to pay her debts little by little, that she continues to live with the consequences of her decisions. 6 months ago, I saw her by chance. I was downtown buying something for the house, and there she was leaving a store. Our gazes crossed for a second. She looked much older, her hair almost completely gray, her posture stooped, her clothes worn. She looked at me with something that seemed like shame mixed with sadness. I simply nodded and kept walking. I didn't feel rage. I didn't feel satisfaction at seeing her like that. I felt nothing but indifference. And that told me everything I needed to know about my healing process. True forgiveness isn't forgetting or reconciling. It's reaching the point where the harm done to you no longer controls your life. It's being able to see the person who hurt you and feel peace instead of storm. My therapist, Dr. Amalia, discharged me a year ago. In our last session, she told me something I carry with me every day. Jorge, what Lorena took from you is real. 5 years of your life, your financial stability, your trust in people. That's undeniable. But what you recovered is even more valuable. Your dignity, your self-knowledge, your ability to set healthy boundaries. You're stronger now, not despite the pain, but through it. She was right. I would never have chosen to go through what I went through. I would never recommend anyone suffer like that to learn, but I also can't deny that the person I am now is more conscious, more complete, more genuine than I was before. I learned that true love doesn't ask you to disappear. It doesn't demand you give up everything you are. It doesn't keep you isolated from the world. Real love sees you, respects you, allows you to grow. I learned that kindness without limits is self-destruction. That saying no is an act of self-love, that caring for others is fine, but never at the cost of completely abandoning myself. I also learned about warning signs, progressive isolation, manufactured emotional dependence, guilt as a tool of control, requests that always grow but never end. Now I recognize them. Now I stop them before they take root. My sister Brenda got married last year. At her wedding, she asked me to give a speech. I talked about family, about unconditional support, about how she saved me when I needed it most. When I finished, she hugged me, crying. "You saved me too," she whispered. "You taught me that strength isn't enduring everything, but knowing when to ask for help." Those 3 years also taught me about community. Miguel, my soccer friend, is still an important part of my life. Ricardo, my boss, became a mentor and friend. Other colleagues, neighbors, acquaintances, all formed a support network that I never knew I needed. I discovered that isolation isn't just dangerous, it's unnatural. Humans need a tribe. We need people who see us, who really know us, who call us when they notice something is wrong. A month ago, Brenda, my partner, and I had an important conversation. She wanted to talk about the future, about marriage, maybe. I felt that familiar panic rise in my throat. After what I experienced with Lorena, the idea of marriage terrified me. "We don't need to get married," she told me when she saw my reaction. "We don't need a piece of paper to validate what we have. I just wanted to know what you think about a future together." I took her hands and told her the truth. "I'm scared. I'll probably always be scared, but I also know that what we have is real. It's honest. It's reciprocal. And I want to build a future with you at my pace, with my limitations, but I want to try." She smiled. "That's all I need to hear. Your pace is perfect for me." And so we go day by day, without rushing, but without stopping, building something solid on foundations of honesty and mutual respect. Sometimes I still have nightmares about those 5 years. I dream that I'm still trapped, that I'm still caring for someone who doesn't need it, that I'm still losing pieces of myself day after day, but I wake up in my apartment next to someone who truly loves me, surrounded by a life I've built with effort, but that is genuinely mine. And I breathe deeply, reminding myself that I'm no longer there, that I survived, that I escaped. If I could talk to the Jorge of 5 years ago, the one who was about to fall into Lorena's trap, I don't know if I could warn him. Maybe some lessons are only learned by living them. But I would tell him this: your kindness isn't weakness. Your capacity to love deeply is a gift. Just make sure you give it to someone who truly values and respects it. And if I could talk to someone who's living something similar right now, someone who feels they must sacrifice everything for another person, someone who's losing their identity in the name of love, I would tell them, you're not obligated to set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. True love doesn't ask you to disappear. And if it does, it's not love, it's abuse disguised. Today I look at my life and I see possibilities instead of chains. I see a future instead of an endless loop of sacrifice. I see a second chance I almost lost. Lorena took 5 years from me, but she didn't take the rest of my life. That victory is mine. And every day I live authentically. Every moment I choose my well-being without guilt. Every time I set a healthy boundary is an affirmation that I survived and that I deserve to survive. Freedom doesn't always feel glorious at first. Sometimes it feels like walking through ruins. But with time, with support, with constant inner work, those ruins become foundations for something new, something better, something true. And that is finally enough.